He could not marry, he could not have children, he could not go to any celebrations, and he could not go to any funerals and mourn. Now you might think that's a little harsh, but let me just tell you that God knew what he was doing. You see, God was going to bring destruction on Jerusalem. And he knew that there would be famine, and there would be pestilence, and people would die. And he was sparing Jeremiah from greater pain. Don't marry, Jeremiah. Don't have children, they'll simply die. And when you go to a celebration, or don't go to celebrations because this is not the time for celebrating, and do not mourn because yes, people will die, but they will die because of their own foolishness. Do not mourn. You see, Jeremiah really had an incredibly difficult job. Jeremiah was a man who endured incredible persecution. Sometimes when I read this book, I do not know how he stood all he did. Because the people in his little town really didn't like him. His own family dealt treacherously against him. His own family. Those are the people you love and you should feel secure in their love. The men of Judah tried to kill him. The priest hated him and told the people he was lying. He was beaten at one point and put in stocks. Now, all of this is happening to him because he is telling them that judgment is coming and they don't want to believe it. Let me tell you what beating and put in stocks means. You were stretched across the floor probably, or standing up, and your arms and your legs were stretched tight so the skin on your back was tight, and then you were beaten with a rod that would literally open up the skin on your body. This was incredible torture, very painful. If they went beyond 40 lashes, you might die, and so they wouldn't do that. They'd keep you alive, but you would be in great pain. After they had done that, they took this man and bent him over in two so that his hands were lashed to his ankles, and they left him there overnight. This is a great torture for this man. Another time, the officials were so angry at him that they threw him into a well where he sunk almost to the point of just dying in the well, and I'm sure he thought he was going to die in that well, and yet God rescued him. He was thrown into a dungeon. He was thrown into the guardhouse. You see, they were horribly cruel to a man who was speaking the truth. Jeremiah faced a lot of persecution. He was a man of great courage, but yet very tender emotions, and don't miss this about him. He is far from a hardened man. At one point, he is at the temple, and he's telling the people, if you do not turn back to the living God, he will bring judgment on this city, and it will be destroyed. You can just hear him just crying, begging him to turn back. At which time, that is when he is beaten. He is thrown into those stocks. He comes out the next day, he faces his opponent, whose name is Pashur, and he says, you will be cursed because of this. He's still a man of courage. And then he goes away, and he gets with his God. And now you can just hear him, Lord, you have deceived me. My words that I speak, the people are against me because of the words I have spoken on your account, Lord. You have made me look foolish among the people. Lord, you have deceived me. And then he goes on and he says, but you know what, Lord? These words that you put into me are like a fire within my body. I have to speak them. I try not to talk about you. I try just to mind my own business, but they're like fire in me, and I have to speak. And then he goes on and he says, and I praise you, the living God. You see, he knew right where to go to when his heart was broken. And he knew right where to go to when he needed his face to be lifted up to something higher than the absolute misery that he was living in. He was a man of incredible courage and incredible tender heart towards the people. In the end, after Jerusalem has been destroyed, Nebuchadnezzar, who has come into town, had heard about Jeremiah. You see, right back in the first chapter, God had made a promise, and he said, Jeremiah, I'm going to deliver you. And sure enough, through Nebuchadnezzar sends the captain of his guard to Jeremiah, and here's what he says. I think this is hilarious. The Babylonian says to Jeremiah, your people are so stupid. Well, by now, we've gotten the good idea that these people are really stupid. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I can see those people in me. And he says, these people are so stupid. But Jeremiah, Nebuchadnezzar has a message for you. If you would like to come back to Babylon with us, you come on with us and you will live under the care of Nebuchadnezzar. Anything you want, Jeremiah, we will give to you. You know, this is an offer that I think I would have taken. Sign me up. I want to now be a pampered prince. I have been this prophet for so long. They have treated me so miserably. I can't stand to be here for another minute. Take me with you, Nebuchadnezzar. Put me in the palace. I want to go to the spa. I want a rest from these stiff-necked people. That's what I would have said. I tell you, it tells you so much about this man Jeremiah, because he would not say that, because the things that God loved were the very things that Jeremiah loved, and he says, leave me here. I want to stay in the land with these people who were left. Another group of people were taken back to Babylon. Zedekiah was with them, and that's where he died. Jeremiah stayed in the land, and the people who were left in the land were the poorest of the poor. These were not the bright ones. These were not the highly creative ones. These were not the educated ones. These were the poorest of the poor. They were left in the land, and Jeremiah says, I want to stay in the land and take care of these people. The last person who was over Judah was Gedaliah. And he was a governor. He had been appointed by Babylon. He was only in office a short time, and a rebel Jew killed him. And now all of the people who were left, this small group who were left, were afraid that Babylon was going to come down and really get them this time, now that they had killed the governor Babylon had set up. And so they all got together, asked Jeremiah what they should do. Jeremiah says, you know what? I have gone to the Lord. He goes to the Lord, and 10 days later, God comes back with the answer. I've gone to the Lord, and the Lord says, you stay here, and I will take care of you. And the people, showing their normal, natural, stupid ways, said, you're lying. We're going to Egypt. You see, those people always wanted to go back to Egypt. And so they go back to Egypt, and they take Jeremiah with them. While Jeremiah was still in Jerusalem, and things were very bad. The temple had been destroyed. The city was destroyed. Babylon had taken back all of the great ones. He wrote a letter to those people in Babylon. You see, he was still the prophet taking care of the people. And he said, while you are in Babylon, I want you to build houses. I want you to plant vineyards. I want you to settle in this place, because you're going to live there 70 years. While you're there, be a light. While you're there, cling to the living God. You will be there 70 years. You see, he told them they would be there 70 years. And you will find when we get to the book of Daniel, Daniel, after they had been there about 67 years, read the book of Jeremiah, realized that they were getting close to coming back to the land, and indeed that is exactly what happened. Remember, when God says he's going to do something, count on it. He will do it. So what is Jeremiah's message Well, if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm going to tell you one more time. During Josiah's reign, Jeremiah condemned Judah because they were worshiping and wanted to worship false gods, and he promised that God would bring judgment. His message is judgment. B, during Jehoiakim's reign, Jeremiah promised judgment because the people were so rebellious still against the living God. During Zedekiah's reign, he urged Judah, listen to this, he urged Judah to surrender to Babylon. God said, if you surrender, I will take care of you. And they would not do it, and so he promised judgment on the land. That was Jeremiah's message. During Gedaliah's rule, Jeremiah ministered to those who were left in Jerusalem. He was still caring for them. His message had now changed. It was not judgment anymore. It was, God will take care of you. Let me minister to you through God's words. Jeremiah predicted the coming Messiah. How is Jesus Christ concealed in this book? Jeremiah says God is going to send to Israel a righteous branch, and he will be called the Lord of righteousness. And when he is king of Judah, there will be peace. And lastly, one thing Jeremiah did is he prophesied against 10 nations. Remember in the beginning, when God calls him to be a prophet, he says, you're going to speak to many nations. Well, he wasn't kidding, because Jeremiah, this tender-hearted prophet, prophesies to 10 different nations.